Hello, my name is Durham, and today I will be talking about the archival processing project I did for my course, Archival Representation. So this is the project overview. This is pulled directly from the syllabus, and here's the different points of the processing project. And it says, the completion of this project will entail developing a processing plan, arranging and describing the materials, doing background research on the collection for the preparation of a finding aid, creating a finding aid using DACAs, and creating a MARC record of the finding aid, marking up the finding aid in an EAD, and writing a web page for the collection. So a little background on the archive that I worked with. I worked with MySci, Collections and Archives in Schenectady, New York, and the particular collection I worked with was part of their General Electric history that documented the life's work of one of their employees that worked in a research lab named Floyd Kelley. A little bit about the collection. So the collection was donated by Floyd Kelley's granddaughter in 2021. There's very little outside information and context about Floyd Kelley. There's very little processing. Many of the items are in original file folders, but everything that I was able to gather from him came from the contents of the files, from newspaper clippings, and his own writing. So, a quick summary. Floyd Kelley worked in the General Electric Research Laboratory for 47 years. He joined the staff in 1912 after graduating from Union College with a degree in chemistry. This collection is a summary of his professional history while working in General Electric labs and includes various materials such as lab reports, metal alloy research, patents, publications made during his tenure at General Electric. So the first part of the archival processing project was creating a processing plan. So this includes physically processing the items, figuring out an arrangement and describing of the materials. There was a wide range of materials within the 3.5 cubic feet that I had. There had been very little processing, and many of the items were still in their original file folders. So there was a lot of removing, rusty paper clips and staples. Something that was particularly challenging when figuring out the system of organization and arrangement was there is an abundance of scientific research and lab reports, and I did feel a little overwhelmed figuring out a system when figuring out what would make sense for future access for the collection. I am not particularly familiar with chemistry and engineering, so a lot of the terms and materials and blueprints within this were challenging for me to figure out the proper arrangement, but it was a fun exercise to come up with a system of arranging this in a way that would make sense for future access of the collection. And here are some of the examples of what the boxes looked like. On the right-hand side, you can see that they were labeled, which was really helpful for me. I'm going to assume probably by Floyd Kelley himself. And within each of those folders was any of his research lab reports all kind of together, so that helped with figuring out the arrangement of things. And then on the left is an example of one of the General Electric research laboratory reports. The next step of the processing project was writing a finding aid. Finding aid, or describing archives, a content standard. It is a neutral output set of rules for describing archives, personal papers, manuscript collections, and can be applied to all media types. So more specifically, a finding aid is a document that is used within archives that helps assist a user, or even the archivist, find or locate items within the archival collection. The finding aid offers descriptions of the collection, important information such as the scope, organizational system, and information about the archival access to the items, or if the items are accessible digitally. It's a very useful tool in navigating an archival collection. This is an example of my finding aid that I created. Some of the key features are the location, which is where the items are located, the date range, the extent, which is the amount, so this is 3.5 cubic feet, the name of the creator, so the company, organization, or person that created the materials in the collection, the scope and content, the system of arrangement, and access and usage. All of these things provide an important overview at a quick glance about items within the collection and how to access them. The next step of the processing project was creating a MARC record. A MARC record is a machine-readable cataloging record. Machine-readable means that one particular type of the machine, a computer, can read and interpret the data in the cataloging record. So this just makes the information from the finding aid more accessible for digital usage. This is an example of my MARC record that I filled out. The next step of the processing project was to create an encoded archival description. So an encoded archival description is an XML standard for encoding archival finding aids. This experience was interesting because this is my first time ever coding and using XML coding standards. This is useful to use to make the archival materials and the information in the finding aid more accessible online and making them more discoverable using catalogs or library search materials. Here is an example of my EAD record. This is posted on the website that I created for the assignment, which leads us to the next part of the project. This is the webpage that I created for the Floyd Kelley papers. In the processing project portion, I have screenshots of all of the different parts of the assignment that I completed. Images from the collection includes some photographs from items in the collection, and then there's also a summary about Floyd Kelley and a little bit more information about the archival processing project on the tabs towards the bottom. This was a really interesting experience and a really helpful process in order to get hands-on experience processing an archival collection. This was especially interesting because there had been very little processing done for this particular collection, so a lot of it was in original folders, not really organized, so kind of going through it and spending extra time to figure out what I was looking at made things challenging for coming up with a system of arrangement. I would have also enjoyed the opportunity to digitize some of the items because there was a lot of really interesting things that I found. From the history of the General Electric Research Laboratory. One thing I found noteworthy is that Floyd Kelley had a sense that the context was important, and wherever necessary, he would include like the date and newspaper title for newspaper clippings, which you can see in the photo on the left, where he stapled where the newspaper clipping was from and the date. And these are all clippings about his research and any sort of like presentations he gave about his research, which is very helpful in dating and providing context for these newspaper clippings. There was also a detailed notes page of biography of all of his work and research, and there was also a binder where he included all of his letter of recommendation for the award he received, which was pretty cool to see. I think Floyd Kelley definitely had a sense of the future preservation and the context of all of the items, which is really helpful when processing the materials in the collection. And here is that award that he received in 1962. And on the right, there is an image of a document that was in the collection talking about some of the work in which I have been interested in by Floyd Kelley, which gives an overview and summary of his professional career, where he went to college, and what kind of research he was conducting while he was working at General Electric.